Getting ahead in our careers means putting our nose to the grindstone, pushing ourselves and coworkers towards perfection. Or does it? Organizational psychologist Dr. Marissa Pei calls this the BS belief system that can get in the way of good relationships, good leaderships, as well as the happiness we feel in our relationships at work and at home. She's the author of 8 Ways to Happiness from Wherever You Are. Thank you, Dr. Marissa, for joining us here on the couch today.
And thank you, Christy, for having me.
Welcome, welcome, and congratulations on your book.
Thank you very much. It's been wonderful, yes.
Yeah.
Making #4 on Denver Post and 6 and 7 on Amazon are made of dreams that I never thought true. But the good news is happiness is trending, and people are wanting to be happier.
Well, let's talk about these myths, because
Yes.
you have 3 myths that you say really get in the way of being a good leader. And being a good leader doesn't have to mean that you're the CEO of a massive corporation. It can be being the leader of your home.
Yes.
It can be being a good friend. It can be just leading others in a good way. And so you say myth #1 is a leader's job is to whip you into shape.
Well, the thing about whipping and the thing about being in the grindstone and always pushing, it's never enough. So most of us are recovering perfectionists of some kind or control freaks, and we really want things to be a certain way, but life is a little messy and nothing is there, and it's like nailing Jell-O to a tree or, you know, herding cats in any kind of organization as well as in your home. You want something, but if it's not that way, then you're unhappy. And so if you're, the only thing you can really control is yourself and the way you see life. And so that is one of the BS belief systems that continuously keep us unhappy.
I call it positology.
That's a great
I always say,
term.
I'm a positologist. I think great thoughts, good things happen. And if you try to look at life in the positive direction, generally it kind of always works out.
Absolutely.
Okay, myth #2, perfectionism is a noble endeavor. What's wrong with that? You say it robs us of the joy of accomplishment.
Yes, so perfectionists, on one hand, it helps you accomplish a lot. However, nothing is ever enough.
Right.
So when you know, I'll be happy when I get this done, or I'll be happy when this much money is in my bank account, or I have this car or this house. But then when you get there, you're going for the next thing. So you're always at that 88% mark, and instead of looking at, oh, look at all the things that have happened and all the great things that have happened in my life and how great I am and how great the person I'm with is, we're looking at that 12%, what's still wrong, what needs to be put into the next day's to-do list, and what's wrong with you.
And it really does rob you of your joy, because you're
does.
constantly saying, okay, by the time I'm 40, I have to do this. Or, you know, I think it also really robs our children.
Yes.
Because we probably do that with our kids a lot.
We treat people the same way, because you see people, you know, unless it's that first, you know, honeymoon stage where everything's perfect, but usually
that fades pretty quickly.
It does. You're at the 88%. Instead of seeing the 88% good of that person, we begin to focus on, oh, if he would only text, or if he would only leave the toilet seat up or down, whatever it is.
It would make us so happy.
Yes, and we forget the broad perspective, the 88,000% look.
Instead of saying these are the great things. Maybe we have a few things to work on, but let's be proud of what we have accomplished. We always look at the 12%.
Exactly.
Okay, and myth #3, I need smart people to execute. I don't have time for this touchy-feely stuff.
Well, the sad thing about it is the touchy-feely stuff is half of the equation. So people think that, you know, if people just do what I say or execute, everything will be fine. But the problem is, or the solution is, work is 50% task and 50% relationships. And you can be a rocket scientist and have great content, but if you can't execute with people and be interpersonally effective, the task won't get done.
People don't like you. They don't want to work with you.
Exactly. Exactly.
Speaking of that, you talk a lot about happiness. And you
Yes.
talk a lot about how to get happy. And I think that's something in this day and age that a lot of us have a really, really hard time accomplishing. We're constantly on our phones. We have to be constantly available. We have to do. And you talk a lot about, like, let's just take a step back here. And you wrote a book about it, 8 Ways to Happiness from wherever you are.
Exactly. So if you go do this, do that, do this, you end up in do-do. That's #1.
That's right.
We don't want that. Yeah, we don't want that. And it is that, again, that perfectionistic, you know, nothing's ever enough. We got to accomplish, we have to succeed. And we're never in that place of, am I happy? And the fact that 1 in 4 Americans are currently on antidepressives and anti-anxiety medication, and many are still anxious and depressed and now have dangerous side effects on top of it. Suicidal thoughts, that's a main effect, not a side effect. And it begins to make us wonder, who are we and are we happy? And that's the good news. So everyone's stopping now to actually ask that question. And with the unfortunate passing of Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain, look, you know, happiness, what happened? Status, money, that's supposed to make you happy, right? The American dream, that's supposed to make you happy. Cinderella, happily ever after. But all of those are BS belief systems that keep us locked into this la-la land of thinking that that we're entitled to a life without pain. But as Sally Fields came out this morning again, she's one of the 7 out of 10 of us, the majority of us who are not, don't have that normal, functional home. So if the majority of us grow up with childhood trauma of some kind, why do we think there's something wrong with us, that we need to be fixed, or that we'll never get ahead, or all the bad things? There's nothing wrong with us. We've had life pain. Pain in life is mandatory, but suffering is optional.
And that's critical there. And I think if people are watching today, because whether you've been abused, whether you've lost a loved one, whether I mean, everybody deals with something, right?
Fear, perfectionism,
If they're watching today thinking, well, how do it's all good and well to say, well, just be happy. Let's just get to happy. What are 1 or 2 practical things people can do today, right now, to help them make that leap?
Great question, Christy. Thank you. I call it Blisscipline. I got that from Michael Bernard Beckwith, who wrote the foreword to the book. So every morning I wake up and the first thing I do is not turn on the you know, the if it leads it bleeds news, right? Sorry,
there's a lot of that though. These days.
Because we gravitate towards what's bad and wrong,
and it's just
all over the place. So I sit up and I take a breath and I just connect with me. And that's through the breath, which is qi in Chinese. I know you thought I was Swedish, but if you take that breath in through the nose and then release through the mouth, and just do it, start with 2 minutes. It's meditation, but you don't, it doesn't have to be rocket science meditation. It's just a connection with who you really are at the core of who you are, which is a precious, loving, loved, and lovable being. Then I start with 8 gratitudes. Now, Dr. Wayne Dyer, beautiful.
I loved him.
And he's watching us from the other side, and he'd said 5 gratitudes in the morning. Now, I'm an overachiever, so I say 8, and 8's a lucky number in Chinese. So it's a homonym for good fortune, with the title of the book. So I do 8 gratitudes first thing in the morning, and that sets me to actually begin to look at all the good things that are going to happen in that day. And then before I go to bed, instead of thinking about, oh, I have to do this tomorrow and I didn't get to this, I close the day, or I sandwich my day with 8 gratitudes, and that helps the day
just get you and set your intention.
What it is.
That's right.
You're positive.
Positology, my friends.
That's it.
All good things. So let's make a deal with each other. Let's set some positive intentions. Let's be grateful, and let's try to look at the 88% that we have accomplished and we can be proud of, and then we'll work on the other 12% together. How about that?
Yes.
Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
So lovely to meet you. Check out her book, 8 Ways to Happiness, from wherever you are. Thank you to Dr. Marissa, and we'll see you after the break.